Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Truly Bedrock Recap. Last week saw massive base progress, massive changes to the shopping district, and even black market activities. Well, this is Truly Bedrock. Where else would you see a zombie cooking a bog to make borscht? If you missed any of that, go check out last week's recap, which is available in the cards of this video, as well as a pinned comment. My name is Mr. Mob Gaming, also known as Kai, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Mr. TF Brit. To keep up to date with all things Truly Bedrock, please check that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications. But okay, that's enough about us. Let's start this week's recap.
Before we get started, I should warn you, this week's recap is going to be a little bit different than the normal program. I'm in charge of the script, and unfortunately, I was unavailable due to life and other obligations, so this week may feel a bit more condensed than normal. And in addition to that, we're going to combine the previous 2 weeks into one megasode, as I'm sure you've gathered from the title. No worries though, next week we should be back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, now on to the recap. We start this week with JC, who starts off at an AFK fish farm gaining levels and collecting books, and then shows her perspective of the dragon fight, and goes end raiding with Geo, Layara, and Alien. And as most people did, was able to get a pair of wings out of the Avenger amongst other treasures, and quickly buys mending from Alien before getting completely geared up with full diamond gear. After successfully breeding, sets up some tricky redstone to get the babies into the collection area, but ends up with a decent collection of villagers available for use.
Alidrium is up to bat and starts with a trade we seen with Addy last week. Then shows off the collection of books collected from his villagers, and meets up with Moss to sell him bread for 9 diamonds as seen last week. Then is back at the shopping district to build the most beautiful bookshop you've ever seen. Once the shop is built on the server, Elysium explains the lore behind the shop, which used to be a movie theatre, then went out of business, and the only remaining section is the lobby, so he teamed up with Moss to buy it out and convert it into a bookshop. And that is all for now.
Addy logs onto the server to see that he's officially been fired, then plays a game called Blocko, where us, the viewers, need to count how many times throughout the video this block appears. We're not going to spoil the number for you though. Then Addy is in a desert to collect a camel to replace the one he stole from Eladrium last week, and along the way plans out a trivia game for the rest of the server, and returns the camel to spawn only to find that Moss has already brought Eladrium a camel. So after admitting defeat, heads just past the shopping area to get started on building the trivia game area. Then rats out Alien for the competition against Rogue Fox in the shopping area, and trades some trims in exchange for promising to use his shop for his food source the entire rest of the season.
Liara is back at her lighthouse to show the storage she has started. Then meets up with Slack to see the finished product of the shop door that we seen in Slack's video last week. With the shop ready for business, she meets up with Sloyd to sell him an official membership just as we seen last week, and sneaks under Eladrium's house to get tome number 1 so she can get into the super secret shop, and then collects a yellow sheep to align with the Pokemon lore of her lighthouse. Speaking of Pokemon, she plans to collect them all to display at her main base. Starts with a Sniffer and 2 doggos, and catches the moment the Sniffer hatches as well. Then JC comes by and gives her some emeralds to use as she wishes as a thank you for helping her on day 1, and then finishes up getting her electric sheep Pokemon to the top of the lighthouse, and collects the rest of the missing dog Pokemon, brings them home.
On to Smurf, who starts out in his storage area, and then collects loads of wood to craft tons of crafting tables for his new floor, and gets to work building a massive bamboo farm, and closes out flying around in the nether. Slates is back, showing off the changes to the blue base, then makes his way out to the end to collect his first Elytra, as he is the last member to be flying around, and after visiting many pre-looted end cities, finally finds himself his first official pair of wings. Then he does a little bit of end raiding and makes his way home with some decent gear. Then meets up with Smurf to take on their very first Wither, and after a tough battle they manage to kill the Wither and are back at the Blue HQ to set up their Haste 2 beacon. A day later is back with Smurf, and by some stroke of luck, cure a rogue zombie villager to revive their mending villager. And then the two go and collect a few achievements, but instead just end up raiding ocean monuments, which to their credit, they were able to get a few achievements along the way.
We are back with Rogue Fox now, who is finally out of iron armour, and then gets his first maxed out sword, and then starts building his shop that was seen in Addy's video a little earlier. He then heads to the nether to kill some blaze and get some levels. It's back to the overworld to build a double spawner farm, where we're left on a cliffhanger before we get to see the finished product. On to Sloy now, who starts this week off in the nether to gather some easy nether brick to sell and use for a new shop, and after just a few moments is back at the shopping district to build the new shop. Once complete, Sloy fully stocks the shop and sets an extremely reasonable price. I don't think you'll have any trouble getting that to sell. Of course, to go with the theme of his log shop, this is all for show, to encourage people to find their way into the super secret black market store under this one, in order to get the real items at reasonable prices. And to get into this shop, you go into the basement, climb into the boat hidden behind a wall, and then put a tome book in a clay pot. The Sloy heads to a nearby trial chamber to quickly collect some pots. But after spleefing a shopkeeper into the super secret store, gives us a quick demonstration of the final result.
Okay, now check this out. So you come in, obviously you're like, I'm not buying the single brick, and you go down into the basement, you find the secret boat, and you descend down here. And you go, oh, this reminds me of Aladrian's home, I should probably use the book I found in it. And you even get the book back, and you run through the door, and you are greeted by our epic shopkeeper.
Jin starts out this week on top of GeoGirl's hot air balloon, then moves her gifted friends over to her main base in preparation for an upgrade to the dragon base, and then builds up a massive spoiler wall, then buys some cherry wood from Zloy, and gets to work on the actual design of the dragon base design on stream, but leaves the spoiler wall up for the viewers of this video for the time being. Then meets up with GeoGirl, and the two fire Addy from his own internship, then pranks Alien as well by changing his shop to a mossy green color instead of the blue. And in place of a time lapse to reveal her new dragon base, we get to look at this one-of-a-kind diamond, and then finally see the reveal of the massive, awesome looking dragon base.
GeoGirl is back as well, and starts off building her first shop, a bone shop, also on the side of Sloy's shop similar to Addy's beef shop. Then stops by her skeleton spawner to pick up some bones to help stock her shop. But before that, we get a glimpse of the build process, and after a bit of struggle, Slack comes over to help set up a trident killer for the farm, and after gets a decent stock of bones, teams up with Jen for a prank on Addy that we saw a few moments ago, and ends off finding a sword that Jen gifted her for the Skelly farm.
Smurf is back for a second time, and the crafting tables are looking better than ever. Then teams up with Slates to start hunting achievements, and starts off with a pretty easy one, giving another player a mushroom stew. And then revives sub to Alien Villager like we seen in Slate's video. And then the two head out to the Ocean Monument to attempt to get more achievements for obtaining the armor trim. However, he does manage to get 6 other achievements, but never gets the armor trim.
Back with Addy now, and he immediately gets overwhelmed by Jen's giant dragon base. Then asks Jen to investigate who exactly fired him.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, you're doing reporting, right?
I am doing reporting, yeah.
Is there any way you can investigate who did this to me?
Slack's calling.
Oh, okay, bye. I guess she can't do it.
Then reveals that there were 7 blocks in the Blocko game played earlier in the week. Did you manage to find all 7? Then Addy gets to work to design the interior of a trivia game room, and before getting started on the redstone, meets up with Liara to work out a deal on some iron in exchange for Jen's dragon base. Once that deal is made, Addy gives us a demo of the yellow certain redstone for the trivia room.
Over at Slack's base, the plan for this video is a mob farm to keep up with the demand of the rocket shop. And for a mob farm, you need trident killers, and for trident killers, you need impaling, and since Slack doesn't have any impaling villagers, heads over to Liara's shop, only to find that she also lacks an impaling villager, so he reverts to the next best thing, an enchanting setup. And after getting all the tridents enchanted, gets started on the mob farm. And after seeing some results, Thanos snaps more layers into the farm and suddenly has nearly more mobs than he can collect items. And with drops like that, now has the materials needed to keep the shop fully stocked at all times.
Alien is back again this week. It starts off with showing off all of his end loot from earlier in the season, which he plans to use to build and stock his competitive shop against Rogue Fox. And literally builds a straight up replica. However, prices are completely cheaper. Then goes to a creative world to design a raid farm. It also adds an iron farm and a trading hall into the farm. And with a plan in place, gets to work in survival. Starts by moving villagers over to the raid farm, and then spends time building the rest of the farm. Once the farm is complete, decides to grab a bunch of emeralds and sets up a micro shop, selling the emeralds right outside Liara's trading hall.
Liara is back again, starting things off selling a season pass to Eladrium, and finds a villager is missing. If you ask me, Smurf is looking pretty suspicious with that fire aspect sword nearly killing his own mending villager. Then she meets up with Jin to breed some sniffer Pokemon and gives her the egg and some emeralds. Then heads out to the Nether to barter with some piglins for crying obsidian. But after failing to get the necessary amount, builds an official bartering farm. Then meets up with Addy to make a deal to get tons of gold and barter enough to get nearly a stack of crying obsidian.
Chloe is back in the Super Sega shop, and this time plans to expand the black market into an underground train station. He then gets started on the design. Then after getting it mostly ready, aside from the shops themselves, discovers that he is completely sold out of materials in the shops market, and then gets a group of hard hat wearing zombies into the train station and ends this video showing off the nearly finished product.
JC starts out her next video attempting to mob-proof a cave to begin working on an iron farm, then begins moving some villagers, takes a break to go to the shopping area to buy iron for her iron farm, and is right back to building the iron farm. And after moving the rest of the villagers into the farm, has a halfway working iron farm. Only problem is, the golems are spawning outside of the farm. And on top of that, she realizes she accidentally built a pretty efficient zombie villager farm, but that's a problem for another day.
And with that, we finish out week 5. However, this is a megasode, so don't go anywhere, because we are jumping straight into week 6 right now. Start off week 6 with Moss Logic, who is fed up with his growing chest monster of a storage system. So with the plan to clean the storage, starts off by collecting tons of red sand, then farms a bunch of bones and bamboo, then is found at the new location for his bulk storage, and ends his video at the comment library.
Addy has started to host his new game show, No Games, which appears to be his own micro series, also being held on Truly Bedrock. To see all the games and excitement going on over there, find the show on Addy's channel. Additionally, we will be posting every episode on the Recap Twitter page. Slack starts this week off back at the Upside Down Toaster and flexes his many mob drops and meets up with Jade to trade Lapis for an inventory's worth of gunpowder. Then after crafting a ton of glass and collecting a ton of other redstone materials, builds a gas blaster and then heads to the Nether to capture a ghast and bring it to the overworld. But of course, the first one dies, but the second try is a success and he gets his ghast into the overworld. And just like that, the ghast-fueled concrete maker is up and running.
Rogue begins this week at his campground, but quickly moves on to show the armor trims he's collected so far, with the goal of collecting more this week to begin selling them. However, upon arriving at the shop, finds somebody has shut the shop down and set up a competing swap. Then meets up with Addy to purchase any trims he's willing to part with. Then moments later, shows us a completed shop ready for sales, and ends the episode showing off the vibe music that will be playing at all times near his shop.
Definitely is a better vibe than the last track for sure.
Boy starts this week with Liara to conquer a trial chamber while using Bad Omen 5, and after collecting a few ominous keys, manages to get some decent loot, and even managed to get a heavy core and immediately crafts it into the brand new weapon, the mace. But moments later, dies, and they both have to rush back to their loot before the super rare valuable mace despawns and is gone forever. And after many failed attempts,
deal with it while I get the stuff despawned as I got to it.
No! Come on! There was a mace!
but don't worry, because after looking at the recovered loot,
I don't know what I got. Okay, I got the mace. I got the mace.
You got the mace!
Tis Tom returns this week as well. Starts off collecting resources, and after sleeping through the night, heads back to spawn and picks out a location for his starter base. Just a few moments later, has a fantastic start to the week and his season. Moving on to Jen's start of the week. She's back at her drown farm and has framed out a design for the foundations of her base. But before getting started on her own base, heads over to Slacks to help him complete the toaster, and then stops at the shopping area to restock the rocket shop. Then meets up with Addie, who asks her to investigate the fire design. May have exposed herself by dodging the question. I would have done the same. She quickly stops to pick up some name tags from Liara's shop and heads back to her base to show off a sheep shearing farm she's built on stream, and is right back at spawn to breed her sniffer. It ends off showing us some progress on her flower dye shop.
moving on to Plod, who starts this week back at his iron farm. He wastes no time at all covering his iron farm in a brand new build, a massive stripped birch pyramid based on the lost cities of gold. Then gives his dogs some proper names, with his newly enchanted tools does some tidying up around the base, adds a nice walkway at the entrance, and finishes up putting his official nether portal in place.
Smurf is back this week. He starts off by attempting to burn all of his netherite gear because it's not blue. And after realising that he literally burns up his elytra, he teams up with Slates to start building this blue shop, selling everything blue. But after being unhappy with the location, decide to relocate to the backside of Sloy's shop. And after building with no structure whatsoever, they finish the shop.
Liara meets up with GeoGirl to admire some of the new shops and makes a deal for some iron blocks, gives her some emerald blocks, and discusses future prank plans, and then spends the rest of the episode playing Addie's no-no game.
On to Slack now, who traps a bunch of mobs in the nether to prevent further spawns, and after some intensive testing, learns a very easy and efficient way to block mobs in dangerous areas of the nether. And with this newly learned information, proceeds to mob-proof a variety of different locations.
Are we going to get any natural spawning Enderman now? Any? At all?
Just like that, all the populated nether areas are now safe and ready for nether hub construction. It ends off showing off his brand new shulker shop.
Aladrium starts this week off with a beautiful cinematic shot of his brand new bookshop, and right from the start witnesses Addie purchase Zloy's single brick for 4 stacks of diamonds. Then shows off some updates to the interior of the starter base, then builds a concrete converter to collect materials needed to build a bridge that Addie hired him to build, but before getting started has an unfortunate incident in the nether to end this video.
Why did that happen? Okay then.
Alien returns where he left off, discovering the blue shop at the end of last week's episode. He then moves on to start building an XP farm via a guardian farm. He finds an ocean monument, locks the spawn spots, and then gets started building the farm. Only just a few moments later, the farm is operating. Then takes a small break to turn things around to server Blue to advertise the blue shop. And after installing a proper storage system, the Guardian XP farm is completely operational.
Finishing off this megasode with Zloy, who starts this video off mining out an entire trial chamber, but before digging out the entire thing, stops by Tetris Town and flexes nearly an entire double chest of waxed oxidized copper, then heads to the nether to gather some ancient debris, then upgrades a few of his tools, then builds a shop in the sky to sell copper collected from the trial chamber. Sorry, Blue Crew. And after adding the dangly bit, the shop is stocked and ready for the Blue Crew to buy out. That's going to do it for this megasode. Again, next week we'll be back to our normal style recap, and we will be covering everything in much more detail. Stick around so you don't miss anything going on in the truly Bedrock universe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.